julep, julep, julep.
All right. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Learn It Live. Today, we're going to go back through the fluid responsive add-on to Client First today. So we did this last week, and I can't believe 11,000 people watched that video between last week and now. And so we're going to give this another swing. Joe, give us your thoughts on just that, and your thoughts on the response to this fluid responsive, the Client First stuff. Just share your thoughts about all this.
Sure. It's a very important topic. It's very obvious when the 11,000 views come in that first week. That's a lot for us. Our YouTube channel is consistently growing, but this was a big jump for us. YouTube's recommending this content. That tells me that people are searching for this content. They're interested in this content. And that's why we are going to continue focusing on this type of content. Last week, we started to go into REMs, how they work. We started to talk about this fluid responsive tool that we have. And now this week, we are going to cover it again. This is a very complex topic with a lot of nuances. So we're going to continue this early training, intermediate training, advanced training all throughout. We're talking about what REMs are and how this fluid responsive system works with them. I'm excited. This is also relatively new information for me. I've been building websites for years, and REMs, EMs, these types of measurements were not very popular 6, 7, 8 years ago. Not as popular as they are today. Yeah. So I'm excited to get into this. I'm learning, and we're going to teach you a lot about this.
Yeah, and I am learning too. I feel like I don't build anywhere near as much as I used to or should anymore in Webflow. And I feel like it's moving so fast. It's like, okay, I understand Webflow still, but all of this like Finsweet stuff, all these add-ons, all of this, like it's becoming its own language on top of that. And it's really interesting to see how much is coming and how useful this stuff is, what the community thinks. Before we get too far into this, we don't have a show opener today, but I do want to say hello to everyone who's with us in the crowd. Carrie, what's up? Been a while since we've seen you. Daniel is here. What's up, Daniel? Ike is saying Rymar needs a new CPU. Yes, it's under consideration. We'll see. Hopefully today goes pretty smooth. What's up, Babis? Alex is here. What's up? Carrie again, your content is so applicable. Yeah, this is something that lots of people are looking for, this fluid responsive thing, how to build semantically in Webflow. I think just the Client First is a big part of just helping people. And then this add-on is just a whole nother level. So what's up, Maria? My fluid responsive friend, she says. Rock and roll Mustafa, evening, folks. What's up? Greg Dolan in the house. Fazlu, Penny's here. What's up, everyone? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments as we go. We'll get to those as we go through the process. But I think a lot of this is just going to be just Joe's screen share, I think. And we're going to take a look at kind of what he has set up. He's going to walk us through a bunch of this, a bunch of that, and we'll ask questions. We'll get interactive as we go. But Joe, the show is yours.
Cool. Okay. So before we get into this resizing tool, we're going to look at what one REM is. One REM is a relative measure. It's not saying anything specific. It is relative to something else. And when you don't set a browser font size, you don't declare that, we can now put that REM value in the hand of the user. Through the browser settings, the user can actually change what one REM is. And that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at what one REM is, and as we change the browser setting, what that one REM turns into. Then we're going to look at zooming, how zooming works. We're going to look at how viewport width works into all of this, how it relates to the REM. And then we're going to jump into the tool. So before jumping into the tool, we're going to really try to understand the basics here, the core fundamentals of this. And please, I ask that everybody puts their questions in here. Maybe we can answer it, maybe we can't answer it, but we're going to record all of them. So If we can't get to it on the show, we will find a way to give out this information. There's a lot of information, and we're working on a lot of content for this.
Nice.
So let's jump in here. Let's get back to this screen share, and I'm going to zoom in here. You can see that as I zoom, the values are not changing here. Right? I'm just zooming here for your convenience. And we have a Webflow project, very simple, with a rem value of 4 rem on this text, and then 1 rem on this text. Then we have a box that is 4 rem width, 4 rem height. Everything uses rem. In order for this system to work, in order for your site to be truly fluid responsive in client first, everything's rem. We don't need any other, no other values here. So this is a rem example, and you can see the computed pixel values. Yes.
Joe, can I ask you a question there?
Yeah.
On the rems, like let's say I'm used to using percentages as you know, or VWs, right? Like lots of people use VWs or VH as measurements. Can you tell me a little bit about how I might like translate that to rems if I want to do, you know, like something that I would typically do like a 30 VW? How would I translate that to rems, if just in case anybody's like asking that? I know that's something that's on my head.
Yeah, that's an early question for this walkthrough.
Okay.
Before we even get to that, we're going to have a really good understanding of rems, and then we're going to compare it to viewport width. We're going to look at it on the project.
Okay.
And yeah, all that's coming.
Perfect.
The first thing we need to look at is this computed value. This is going to be a reference throughout this entire walkthrough. The computed value is what the browser computes that rem value as, and actually displays it on the website. Everything that your website shows is computed into pixels. So whether you're working in rems, EMs, viewport width, any kind of measurement, it computes to pixels. So we have a little script here that's going to compute the rem value into pixels for each one of these elements. For rems, this computes to 64 pixels. I'll explain what this means. Computes to 16, computes to 64. And we can see that in Inspector. If I open up my Inspector here, let me give a little bit more space here on the side. I can go into Computed. So we're in our Styles panel. This is what it looks like in the normal large view. And we can go into Computed, and we can see that our text value, this is our text. This text is 1 rem. Font size computed is 16 pixels. And this 16 pixels computed is coming from our class rem small, which is 1 rem. Let's get the side-by-side view. I don't like how we can't see this. If we go and check this out, we have our rem large text. We can see that is a computed font size of 64 pixels, and that computed size is coming from 4 rem. So even though we're working in rems, the end game, the end goal is a computation to pixels. And that's what's happening here. So as we go through these examples, we're going to see that pixel value change because rems is relative. And we're going to now go into what it's relative to. It's relative to the user's browser. And we can change the size of a rem as a user. By using rems, by using client first, you are literally putting the sizes of your site in the hands of the end user. And what that means is I can go into my Chrome preferences, any browser preferences, and I can establish my font size. Right here, medium is the recommended and default font size, and that is equivalent to 16 pixels. Now, watch what happens when I go to very small. I am now changing the font size of my browser. This is my preference as a user. This is going to respect that preference. I need to resize this browser for a debounce feature, and you can see that we are at 9 pixels. 36 pixels, this changed. So now 1 rem is equal to 9 pixels because I have changed that browser value in my Chrome settings. And now let's go back to this. Let's now go up this. We'll see every step of this. We go font size small. Let me go back to the project. It already gave a nice resize, and 12 pixels. So we are changing again what the value of 1 rem is. We go back into settings. Let's hit our 16 again just to confirm everything. Resize for the debounce. And hold on. Preferences, appearance. We're at medium. There we go. Just a resizing issue, I believe. Zooming issue. There we go. My browser seems a bit slow here, but we're here. Okay, 16 pixels. We're now at the default. We're back at 16 pixels. 1 rem equals 16 pixels. I am going to go through the next two. I want to make this incredibly clear that we are literally changing the values of our site, the rem values, the computed pixel values, based on the user's preferences. And remember, accessibility, web use, all of this, it's all about the user, right? This is just a core concept of creating on the web. It's for the end user. Somebody else is using this. So we need to respect their preferences. And now we're back up to 20 pixels with the large. And you know what? I know that there are a lot of people that view websites like this. If you have really good vision, you're 25 years old, think about people that are older. I know I'm 30. My eyesight is slowly starting to decline, and I'm ready to start to bump my font size up to large. So just because you are at medium recommended doesn't mean that everybody viewing your site's going to be there. And look at this. Now 1 rem equals 24 pixels. So the point of this walkthrough of the changing of the browser font size is that the rem truly adapts to what that is, to that change of the font. Now, I'll take a quick stop here, see if there's any questions, and then I'm going to turn on the viewport with example, and we'll see how that is different when we change these browser font size. Reimar, any questions here that I can answer?
No specific questions. Carrie was saying that users can set default pixel, but most never do unless you give them a UI element to change it. So yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of accessibility sites, now offer those little tools, or people are starting to add those little controls to the site. But also a lot of people know that they can go in through the browser and make that adjustment there. But Carrie's probably right. Like, a lot of people probably don't know or do that. Can you explain what debouncing is? Pete Thompson is asking there, when you're resizing some of that.
Sure, absolutely. So this is an attribute solution, part of our attribute series that just never launched. And what we're doing here is there's a little system to display the font size, the computed font size, which CSS properties to display. We have a script for it and everything. So that is what's generating these pixel values. And debounce is, we wait until the browser has stopped moving to start that computation, to change that value for the script to run. This is an efficiency thing. It's so that every time I'm changing the browser, it's not running. It stops, then it runs. We have a debounce feature in CMS filter of attributes for when people type. You can type in a text input, and with the debounce feature, you can wait a certain amount of time after that last keystroke. Yeah. So it's not really related to this, but that's what debouncing is.
Yeah, and if you go check, I think it was like the second client first build, or the attributes live build. It was either first or second attributes live build. You explain that because we added debounce to a couple of the sites to kind of slow down that kind of flickering when you're searching. If the filter's moving too fast and you're typing and it's searching every letter, sometimes it starts like spazzing out the screen if you're typing real fast. And so like the debounce will slow that down. And so there's not as much jitter on the screen as those transitions happen.
And watch this. So as I'm moving my browser, the values are not updating. But watch what happens when I let go. This is the debounce feature. I let go. Now it's going to update. It just updated these values. So that's That's the idea of it.
Otherwise, they would be kind of flickering in real time, and it would be changing
Right.
in real time. Yeah. So it can affect performance on the computer. It can like give you flashes, whatever. So yeah. Anyway, Eric is asking. It seems that letting the users change the units of your page could mess with the design. How is this not the case?
Well, it's not the case because you can. It's getting larger. It's almost like a. Let me before I answer that way, I'm going to say this is an accessibility requirement. Forget about what the user should and shouldn't do. If you are following accessibility practices, if you call yourself somebody that does accessibility, it's required that the user can access these font size settings. So this is not optional. And we talked about this on Tuesday. I don't think accessibility is going to be optional in the future. Right now, it's kind of optional in a sense that some clients will never ask about it. There may never be any mention of accessibility, and you can have a very successful web career. But I think we're getting to a point rather soon that accessibility just on the web cannot be ignored.
Yeah.
So this is accessible.
Yeah. Yep. Um, Okay. And Eric, I think another point to add there is that as you get more comfortable with this, you start adapting the design to become fluid and you start understanding that stuff. I think it was Rock and Roll CEO earlier said this tool, when you use it, truly improves your design thinking because you have to start thinking all around. You have to start thinking about accessibility. You have to start thinking about what's this going to look like across different, screen sizes, more so than just the 4 breakpoints that maybe you're thinking of with Webflow regularly. And so, yeah, it starts forcing you to think about maybe some of those unseen things that come up during the web design process. Boris, what's up? Says, finally managed to catch you live. Glad to have you here. Sorry, Joe, what were you going to say?
One more comment on Eric. Eric, we're going to show you that this is not a bad thing, that this is actually a very good thing. So without experience with the tool, without understanding how the tool works, yeah, this may seem not great. But we will show you that you can use your normal build style. You can make some important decisions as you're building, and responsiveness throughout all breakpoints actually becomes a lot more quick. Yeah. And we're going to look at the basics of that on this stream.
Nice. Yeah, and also in addition to that, over the course of this year, you'll see that we launch more programming and content specific to helping you understand these things, right? Hands-on learning. So these live streams, sure, they're good resources. Sometimes, it's hard to go in and pin down, and maybe you don't have, the time to watch live every time, or maybe you want a little bit more hands-on stuff. And so we're going to start offering some of that as we go through, because this is some complicated stuff, and really having some like real world examples and getting hands-on with it makes all the difference. So if you're out there wondering about that, we will be releasing more information about that. Be sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and go to finsweet.com/growth to subscribe there as well, so you get the updates about the streams. Aik is asking, do you use REMs for all use cases? And then Joe, maybe we jump into the next section that you have here.
Yeah. Yes, we use REMs for all use cases. Client First is meant to be a system that can be used for any project, for any person. So we've built everything from product user interfaces with the Client First naming convention and REM system. We build marketing sites of all different sizes. So the answer is yes.
Nice.
And I'll show you that this fluid responsive tool works specifically with using all REMs, which is exactly what you need. So let's get back into this. Let's now look at how this works with VW. As we know, VW is viewport width. It adjusts based on the width of the viewport. So without anything on here, no scripts, no anything, we have a changing font size and the REMS is not moving, right? And when I let go, we'll see the pixel value updates. Great, this is all good. Now, let's go and change these browser font settings. Let's go and go to the browser in appearance, and let's go very small. So if you remember, this was the 9 pixels for a single REM. And now let's go back to this example. And this did not get smaller, right? This is the same thing that we just saw. And this is now respecting the user's font settings. And now let's go the other way. Let's make this really large. Remember this size, it's not going to change. We're going to go to preferences and we will appearance very large. And when I go back to the example, we have certainly a much larger rem value here. And this stayed the same. Look how much these were about the same size in our original view. This is much larger. This is not. And this is what's happening. And you can see as I change this, these values update. So we're at the very large, the 24 pixels. This is now computed 4 times 24, which is 96. 4 times 24 is 96. Great. So as we can see, the viewport width is still adjusting here. The viewport width is working as expected. However, it's not respecting my settings as a user. So imagine somebody is using these settings throughout all the projects, throughout all of their web usage. And then they get to your site and everything's really small or everything is really large, either direction. This could be jarring for a user. We need to make sure that these settings are respected. So back to medium, let's go and look at this. And we'll also look at zooming after. Okay, so now let's get into the tool. We have a really good understanding of what REMS is. We understand that this changes based on the user settings. We understand that viewport width is not doing this. Now let's get into this tool and let's do some first very simple examples, and then we'll get into more complex examples. Let me open this up, which I do not have open. Do we have any questions? Anything good from the
No, I do want
here?
to say Mo here is saying hello comments. Maybe they won't come up. Okay, that's weird. Let's try it here. Oh, that's why. Guest here. Now comments. Okay, Mo. Mo's saying, tried it out. Holy moly, it's really nice. Holy moly. First client project already done, but I would love a cookie that remembers the settings. Not sure what he's saying.
Yeah, the configuration. Absolutely, Mo. You know, as I did some quick tests today for this stream to go over this content, and I actually had the same exact thought. So I'd like to think that we're going to implement that very soon. Alex Iglesias, if you're listening, maybe we can get this done by the end of the episode. Let's see. But yeah, that's a great point, Mo. Thanks.
Yeah, Oren was asking, should we also use REMS for padding and margins?
Yeah.
And
yep, good question. Let's answer that. That's an important one. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say Ike answered it for him right there. Client first system uses REMS for paddings and margin, but you can add whatever else needs to be said there. Okay,
excellent. Oren, that's why we have the example of this box right here. This box for rem on the width and the height, this is clearly not font size, right? A lot of people think, hey, this is just a font size thing, but it works for all measurements, margins, width, anything on your site that's rem based. It is a true connection to that user's browser font size settings. It's a true all site relative measurement. So yes, every single element should have it. And yeah, I believe there's an exception if you want a 1 pixel border. A 1 pixel border, I believe, is the exception.
Nice.
Okay, nice.
There's one, Christian Schmidt is asking, not all, I mean old project. Is it possible to change pixel parameters with a line of code in all projects to be divided by 16 and be in rem after?
No. Yeah. Christian, that's a tough ask.
You can go in while you're doing it and do the math in the box, so you can like do the calculation there while you're entering the value. But I don't think you can. There's not like a way to go through and just change that everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
And then Pete's saying the cat came over because he wanted to listen. Hi, Pete's cat. All right, Joe. What do we got next?
Great. Okay. Next, we're going over the tool and we're going to put some simple scripts on this and watch how it works. What this is a visual tool for deciding how REMs are handled. Each one of these is saying at this breakpoint, this is how many pixels should be in a REM. Here at 0, this is going to be at the smallest 14 pixels. And then it's going to go to 16 pixels, and then to 17 pixels, and then to 18 pixels, and then to 20 pixels. This is what one REM equals. So let's look at an example of this, and we'll actually see the values changing on our REM test build based on what we're entering here. So let's do a test of this getting rather small. We'll put this here at 16. This goes 16 to no scaling. Let's do some no scaling here. And then this one is going to jump high, jump up rather high, and it's going to stop scaling at the max breakpoint. Let's talk about what's going to happen here when we put this on our site. I'm now saying one REM is going to be 14 pixels here. It's going to be 16 pixels here. It's going to go from 12 pixels to 16 pixels in this breakpoint.
So is that
it's not going
real quick, Joe? So that first break where it says 478 pixels and it goes from 16 to 12, that means that once that screen size breaks, then that little ramp is basically getting reset back to 12, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So we built our site in REMs, and now we have full control of what that means and how that scales throughout the project. And we will look after we implement this that this still does respect the user's browser font size. So 767 to 991, this is the tablet view. We're not going to do any scaling here. And then from 991 to, this is a bit too high for us. Let's do something extreme, which would be a lower number. Let's do 1440. Let's do 1600. So from 991 to 1600, this is going to be a pretty extreme scale, I believe. 16 to 24 pixels. So the REM is going to grow as we go from this breakpoint to this breakpoint. And then after 1600, it's going to stop. It's going to stop at 24, and that's the max. So one REM will be 24 pixels at this breakpoint. Now, let's go and copy this and see it working. I'll copy this to the clipboard. I'm going to go in the project. Yes, question.
Now, I was going to say, think about the complexity here, and I just laugh at anybody who says no code is for the birds or that this stuff's a toy, or when they dismiss Webflow as like, oh, just another Squarespace. You know, like these are the things, the control and the ability to do this level of complexity, to manage the nuance of your design, to actually whittle down and get the accessibility standards all the way through, to be able to do this stuff. Like the level of complexity, like the how hard that would be to do in a Squarespace or even a WordPress or anything like that. I know we've been talking a lot about WordPress recently, but I just wanted to point out that's insane. Like the level of complexity here, and going back to what Mustafa was saying and what Carrie was saying about like how it changes your design thinking and the process of designing stuff. Like the minds of the folks that are building this are significantly complex. I think we're just lean visually, right? And so all these folks who like, you know, get on this no code bandwagon and they say, oh, they're not as smart as the developers, or they don't have as much control, or this, that, the other. It's I don't know. I just wanted to point that out. For some reason, it just struck me that I should say something about that there.
I like it. Yeah, this is a complex topic. This is really deep and important web knowledge, and it's right inside Webflow, and it feels incredibly native to Webflow. So let's see how native this feels. And let's actually look at this snippet, and we can start to understand what this is saying. This is declaring the HTML font size in REM. That's the key. The declaration is in rem. It's not in pixels. It's not in viewport width. It's not in anything else. It's in rem. And that makes it truly relative, again, to the user's browser font size. Look at what we have here. We don't have the crazy calculations at 991. And that's because we have a straight line here. We have the 16 to 16. There is no scaling happening. So for this breakpoint, no scaling. Everything else that is scaling has a wild, unique calculation. And this is a very complex calculation that you never have to worry about. And 1.5 rem, that's because this stop scaling at max breakpoint is in there. So watch what happens when I uncheck this. This is now calculated because it's going to continue scaling up. We'll look at that next. But for now, 1.5 rem, that's 24 pixels. And that is going to stay the same. And then we just make customizations for everything below it. There we go. Okay, so now let's actually see this working. Let's go and publish this so we have some extra screen space. And yeah, all good here. That was the original one. We are published, and let's give a reload. So let's remember what we have here. Let's confirm that from 767, we are equal, and then we're going to ramp up and then be equal. So look at this. We are at 7. We're coming up to 7s. You can see the resizer down there. And the text is getting bigger. Notice how the text is getting larger before the 767, right? We are scaling just like the viewport width. Now we hit the 767. This is going to stop scaling. The viewport width does not stop scaling, but look how our rem text has stopped. And now it's going to continue scaling. So now we have our big scale all the way up to the 24. And I should probably be releasing to show you these calculations. Look, as we're getting closer to 24 here. We're getting closer to 24. Look how close we are, 1598. We are almost at 24 pixels, and we are going to hit 24 pixels, and this is the stopping point. This is where we have the stop scaling at max breakpoint. We are hitting the max breakpoint, and we are no longer scaling past that point. So we can see this has a clamp type style to it, where in viewport width, if you were using this, you would clamp at some point. That's what this is. This is a button click clamp. And let's continue going back down. We will continue to see this, and I'll release so we can see 16 to 16, 16 to 12, and then 16 to 14. So let's go in here. Okay, we're scaling down until we hit the 991. Now we're not scaling at all. Great. Now we are scaling down, and we start at about 16. This is 1 rem, perfect, 775, and we're going to continue going down here. We're down to 15. We are going down to 600. Look at this. We're going to continue going down to 12. Remember our configuration. And we go down, 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 and then we jump back up. We're at 12. And now we are jumping back up. We jump back up to the 16, if you remember in our configuration. Back up to the 16. So we went down to 12, back up to the 16. So you can see that we are truly managing what the 1 rem means and scale through that. Now you may be thinking, well, I thought you said that the user manages the rems. This respects those settings. So we saw what happened on normal. Let's now go to, let's do something extreme, the very small. Now we're at very small. These settings will be kept, and they will be different. So look at this. We are, where's my tool here? If you remember, when we were scaling up We scaled up to 24. It's now, man, this browser tool is not trying to hit 1600 here. Hold on 1 second. Let me give a reload to this. $1,600. 24. This is a lower computed size than the 24 because of the user's browser font settings. So as we are changing this, let's look at this again. We have the full view. Great. Now I'm going to change the browser font size settings. We're going to look at what that changes to, and then we're going to see how Viewport does not respect that. Okay. Very large. So now we're back in here. Font size, and just needed to resize this. And there we go. So look at now, it is very large here. Do we have any questions? Does this make sense?
Yeah, I think it is making a lot of sense for folks. Joel is saying that we've nailed the visual demo. Let's see. There's a bunch of questions in here. I don't know how far off track we want to jump from the section here. Y'all are goddamn wizards. Okay, but not to be confused with other things that will not be mentioned. Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to take a second, go through? Should we just go through all these questions here?
We could. We can see what we can answer.
Is there, let's say, generally optimal line chart shape, or is that dependent on the design? So as you're going through, you know, there's like that little graph that you have that you're shaping. Is there like a, you know, like a ideal, your zigzags should look like this? Or is it kind of just dependent on what you want to do? I could see, I liked where, you know, I could see where if you went through certain, like, hey, if I know you're on a big screen between this width and this width, I really don't want the text to get much bigger. So I like that flat line on those like wider screens, you know, and I like the stop shrinking at a certain point. But yeah, would you say that's kind of like an ideal setup, or is there like just up to the designer's taste here?
I would not say that what I just did was the ideal setup. This was completely random. I just wanted to show the scaling up, the no scaling, all of these different steps here. And I would say that this is really about your project and your design, how you want to approach tablet, how you want to approach mobile. You can try to scale everything from breakpoint to breakpoint. You'll probably have to go and make some edits to the rem values on lower breakpoints in your project. But this is completely up to you. There is no right and wrong. I think for most people, there'll be a playing around period, in a sense that you just have to test it. Test out 10 different configurations, see how they work, start to understand it, and then you can start to get a groove.
Yeah.
And also know, we released this works. We are currently using this on client projects, but we don't have a lot of experience with this. We launched this knowing it's a powerful product, knowing it will be used, but we don't have as many use cases as we'd like. So share your use cases. We're going to share our use cases, and there is no official right answer here, Daniel.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is one of those things that, like Carrie was saying here, where did she say? Client first system so big and detailed, it's exciting. Anyone else feel intimidated by using so much work they didn't touch? Yeah, it is intimidating to go into this, but I would like to point out that learning all of this is something that you could use to kind of grow the type of projects and the amount you charge for your projects. When you can offer this level of accessibility, this level of customization, especially as companies and organizations are being sued for accessibility, like these become value adds that you can charge for, you know? So Carrie's saying she's going back and forth trying to decide whether or not to use this with her team. This video is helping her lean towards using it. So yeah, thoughts there, Joe?
What was the first part of that? Is anybody else intimidated by using so much work that they didn't touch? What does this
I'm
mean?
not sure about the using so much work that they didn't touch. I don't know. Maybe she's saying that like there's so much of client first that she hasn't played with yet.
Mm.
I'm not sure. I just kind of taking the riff off of like, to me, there's so much to learn here. Like there's so much to learn here. So I could see where this could be a little intimidating coming into it. But again, it's one of those things that will really help you understand, become a better developer, a more
Yeah.
well-rounded Webflow
Yeah.
developer. So yeah, Joe, any thoughts there?
Yeah, Carrie, just like any system, whether it's a new platform, a new naming convention, a new framework, you're not going to be a pro on your very first use, on your very first build. You may have an okay client first build, then a better one. Then you're starting to read more docs. Then it's better and better. And you look back after a year and say, wow, my client first process has improved so much. So I am biased here, but I would say jump into it, just start using it. And, I really think you're going to improve.
Yeah. Yeah. This people will be excited about this one. Alex Iglesias answering the question about saving the settings of each project. I'll push an update for that today. So
Nice.
you ask and you shall receive.
Great.
Um, David saying, would a jump down 16 pixels to 12 pixels at a breakpoint switch be something you would do from a design perspective, Joe? So most of the
No,
scaling you were showing there was like scaling up. Would you recommend scaling the other direction?
no. That was not, that was really just for an example purpose. Please do not take this as your template to start using the system. It There are so many factors. We just can't generalize what it should be. Does your site have a lot of text? Is there a lot of paragraph text? Is it huge words? Are there a lot of graphics? All of these play into how the website should scale. But I do know that what I did is not what you should do.
Yeah. Um, Gabriel's asking a question that we probably won't answer because we're doing a full fledged like kind of comparison here. But Joe, any thoughts on this here that you want to answer before or no? Does this
Can you
tool
read this to me, because my screen share view is over
got
the
it?
text?
Does this tool essentially merge client first and wizardry?
No, it does not. It does not. We're not going to go into wizardry, but this is a different strategy for fluid responsive. This is not. Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah. Yeah, and for anybody wondering, because I see a couple questions about Wizardry here. Caleb saying if we
Hmm.
wanted the REM value to match VW on desktop views similar to Wizardry but accessible, would you match 1,000 pixel viewport to 10 pixel font size and then 2,000 pixel viewport to 20 pixel font size? I'm not.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah.
there. We're not going to get into any of the wizardry stuff because we're doing a detailed comparison on the back end. So, any questions you
Yeah.
have about wizardry and how that compares to this responsive engine for client first will be answered in this deep technical dive that we're working on. And so, don't worry, we won't get to those now, but we will answer those questions as we go with some real good documentation there. Um,
Something I'd like to show, another preview of this, maybe a more useful use case of this scaling that you may want to put in your project. This one's easy. A lot of people say that between 991 and what is it, 1280, that designs kind of get ruined. That you just want your design from 1280 to look exactly like it does on the 991. So we'll look at an example where we are just going to scale, starting at this breakpoint, 991, do a fluid scale to 1280, and then stop. It doesn't affect any mobile breakpoints. It doesn't make the site very large. So let's go and do that. The first thing I'm going to do is just start removing these breakpoints, as we will not need them.
Yeah,
I'm
and
going to
that's
go
one
to
thing
it.
we didn't explain at the beginning when we were kind of describing this, that you can add and remove these breakpoints and kind of modify this. These are not related to the Webflow breakpoints. They're not connected to the Webflow breakpoints. They're just kind of defining the pixel change, the scale change in the REM, the system here, the responsive system.
Right. Exactly. Okay, so we have a simple one here. We're 16 pixels. And at 16 pixels, 991, we're going to scale up to 20 pixels. Now, a good way to understand what this means in percentages is to switch to percentages. Doing this doesn't change any of the calculations. As you can see, as I am changing these, there is no change below. This is just for your reference. So we can go to percentages here to see what the percentage scale change is. So this is 100%. This is our 1 rem in the user's browser settings that are normal default. This is 16 pixels. And then it goes to 125. So in the user's browser settings, if that's 16 pixels, that's 20 pixels. If the user's browser font size is 24 pixels, the very large, then it would be 125% of the 24 pixels, which is, I can't do that math live. You can't type live. I can't do math live, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So let's look at this work here. Let's see what this does for us. I'm going to go and copy this to the clipboard, and I'm going to go and paste this into our code snippet here.
I'm glad to see I'm not the only one that does that, by the way. Sometimes clicks the pages for the navigator.
Yeah, that's me. Okay, so what are we testing here? Okay, right, this is what we're testing. We have no text scaling, no anything scaling before 991. Look at how it catches at 991, and now this is expanding, as would our viewport width. So we are just expanding at this breakpoint, 991 to 1280, and now we're back to our normal site. So you can see that this can just be a lightweight edit. You don't have to do this scaling and fluid and like the whole thing moves. You can, maybe that does work for your site, but that's the reality is a lot of marketing sites don't need this and don't ask for this. We very rarely get the question of fluid responsiveness for our large clients. They're not thinking about this. So this is a great way to just put this feature in, super lightweight, and nothing else changes. So you can see this is a great real use case, a great way to get started with your project. You can go implement it in a previous build, and it can be live in a few minutes.
Alex is saying you have to use 129.16% at 1280 pixels. I don't know if that's relevant to your math cause there.
I do not know.
I don't know
what that means.
Yep. Okay, a couple questions. Eric is saying, are you planning to do another client first bootcamp? I didn't get in last time, but I think I'm ready now. Yes. As I mentioned before, we're going to be doing a lot more hands-on stuff. Boot camps will be part of that. And don't worry, because the first boot camps were just small testing. They didn't have, I don't think they covered this fluid responsive because this wasn't around for the first few boot camps, right?
Correct.
So yeah, Eric, we are going to be doing a lot more of that in this year. Stay tuned for more news about that over the next few weeks. Tim has asked this a couple times. Let's make sure we get him an answer. I've tried to implement this, but for some reason the text in the designer shows correctly, but on my published website, the text is so huge, it's out of sight. I'm wondering if he has an override set somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, Tim, I do not know. There could be a CSS style that is affecting a lot of the text. There could be, I'm not sure. I'd have to see the project to really figure that out.
Got it. Alex was saying, I mean, if you wanted to have the exact same proportions that as the 991 breakpoint. So he was saying 1280 divided by 991 gives you that 129.16 number. He was doing the math we couldn't do for us.
Okay, good.
So it's 129.16 is the precise math there.
Great.
Pete, I want to be in a boot camp. Yes, sir. I think lots of people will be. I honestly think those boot camps will be really popular.
Yeah.
And it's all going to be part of an F&E certified program. I'll spill a little bit of the beans there for those of you who are watching late. We're working on some stuff that is going to go through the entire library of things that we teach and really help people step up their game as Webflow devs. So now, again, more stuff y'all asked for that we will continue to deliver throughout the course of the year. Joe, any thoughts here? I think the questions have pretty much died down. Do we have more to cover from your side?
I don't believe so. That's the presentation that I wanted to give.
Nice.
So this is, if you understood some of this, but not all of it, I do recommend that you watch this stream again because this stuff is core, core web. I see this as such a building block of how measurements work that understanding this, I think, is going to help you with a lot of other areas of how you build a website. So, this was a really good stream, very important information. And you'll see that as we continue building with this system, we're going to start releasing clonables, releasing templates, releasing things with this integrated so we can better understand, hey, for this kind of site, you should be doing these kind of things. For this kind of site, try this. And again, if you are building with this system, let us know. If you're using client first with a fluid responsive setup, we want to see it. We will share it with our team internally. People will check it out. And you're just going to help build this system with us just by sharing it. So please do that.
Yeah, I want to shout this one out here. Gabriel saying, much better. Come on, questions. You can come on right up on screen here.
Oh yeah.
Much better intro than last stream. Thanks again, guys, for sure. Yeah, sometimes the technical stuff gets the better of us, and sometimes the internets and computers don't always play along nicely. So yeah.
There is one more thing I wanted to show.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, and Maria, I'll go back to your question, Maria. We'll get there. Okay, Joe, go ahead.
I want to screen share zooming with rem versus viewport width. So I forgot to go over this. We went over the changing of the default font, but a lot of people zoom. I am an avid zoomer. I zoom in and out of sites all the time. If you have small content, I'm not moving closer to my screen. I am zooming. So look what happens as I zoom out of this site. I'm at 90, I'm at 80, and I keep zooming out and out. Look at the rems changing, and look at the viewport width not changing. And the reason is viewport width is based on the viewport width. And the viewport width is not changing. The zoom is changing. So watch as I zoom in. My browser is, come on, larger. Larger. Now I'm up to 300%. This is ridiculously large, and this is unchanged. So that is another, forget about user font, browser font settings. Let's say you're sold on that one. The zoom is incredibly important because people zoom. And that's it. Now I'm done.
Nice. Okay, let's go back to these cues here. Let's go back to Maria's question. Let's see what she said here. If I use this just for example, I'm assuming that's what EX period stands for, only a section, replacing HTML with my target's name so the rest doesn't resize. Am I weird? So can she use fluid responsive kind of selectively on certain portions that she maybe wants to scale and other elements that she may not want to scale? Is that something you might want to do?
You could. This is possible. We've already internally talked about an add-on to this that would allow you to do overrides. So let's say you have your default scaling and you can do overrides for certain classes. This class is not going to follow this rule. This class is going to follow a different rule. And this would be the use case for this. Maria, I don't have a clear use case in my mind what this is for. This could be dangerous, but if there is a use case for it, it's possible.
I think it'd be cool for just some visually interesting sites, right? If you just wanted to make like a website that's art and certain parts were like moving and other parts weren't, like I could see some real interesting visual stuff. And by default, if that's the case, then I could see where that might be visually interesting on other types of sites. So this is one of those things where I think you just got to experiment. I think you got to play with it a little bit. If you have some vision for something like that and you build something cool, again, that's one of those things that we encourage everyone to share with us. There's if you go to client first, showcase /showcase, there's a little place there you can submit that stuff. We'd love to see it, whatever y'all are building with this stuff. So Thanks for all the education you do, Caleb, for sure. Thanks for hanging with us. Caleb shared his personal portfolio at the most recent show and tell. It was super cool. Go check him out on Twitter there so you can see a link to that. But thanks for hanging with us, Caleb. Penny says she set up a test project just to play around and understand how it works. That's the way.
Nice.
That is
Great.
the way. David, I like the last presentation of this tool as well. Maybe you could have beginner and advanced tutorials in the future. Thanks for your time. For sure. As we're just experimenting with these Thursday things. You'll notice that my background will start to stay a little bit more consistent. Some of the traveling is going to be slowing down. I'm back in a consistent location. We'll maybe talk more about that or not as we go. But some of y'all know we've been traveling a bunch, and so hopefully we'll start doing these Thursday streams a lot more consistently. So it'll be Tuesdays and Thursdays, and maybe some other days of the week we'll also be adding to that mix. So we'll see as we go. Let's see, any other questions that I'm missing here? Supercharged Studios, you guys rock. Thank you.
Nice. We have a question about viewport height.
Sure.
And a +1 on it.
Who's asking?
So we have Max Norris. But what's with VH? Sometimes you want the image 80 VH for the header. And we have David with a +1. Good question. VH is viewport height. As we saw with the viewport width, it adjusts as we change this. My Chrome is reacting very slow, but we change the viewport width, this changes. Viewport height works with the height. As we change the height of the site, the value is going to change. So it's going to react the same way that this viewport width is reacting here, that it's not going to adjust and react to the user's browser font size settings. Now, if you're working with something like text, this is not a good thing. If you're working with the size of something, it may not be fluid responsive with the rest of your project. It may not respect the size of the user's browser font, but you can use it if it's not content-based. If it is something that can scale viewport height, I don't have a clear example of this, but some background graphic or some anything that is not dependent on that, that can be used, but be careful with that. I do believe that you can, build exactly what you need to build in REMS. I think viewport height is a cool trick, but I think it also opens the door to some potential issues.
Yeah.
I know I used to use VH a lot, and then there was a point where I said, I'm never using VH again unless I specifically have to, unless there's a super use case to use this.
Yeah, and let me ask this. I mean, going back to the scaling question I asked at the beginning, could then I just set something to, let's say, the VH or VW and then flip that to the REMS, like just click the drop down in Webflow and have it calculate to the REMS transition, and now my calculation's done? Or would that not work?
You can equal it. You can run a math calculation, but it will never work like VH does.
Right.
Of course. To actually adjust the height, it needs to be set as VH.
Right, because it's just going to set that one measurement at that initial state, and then it's going to scale like REMS as opposed to VH once you change that. So it'll make that initial calculation maybe to get that number, but from there on, once you make that switch to REMS, you lose the functionality of what a VH or a VW actually is.
Right, exactly.
Spencer asks a question here. He says, I might have missed this, but do you generally make fluid responsive a 4-pay scope add-on to a typical build that is optional? Joe?
Can you read that one again? I can't.
Yeah, I might have missed this, but do you generally make fluid responsive a 4-pay scope add-on? So it's basically asking, like, if somebody asks for fluid responsive, that's an upsell kind of thing. We're not just saying, oh yeah, we'll do this as like any other build. Are we? Is that something people should do? What's your thoughts on that?
My first thought is that it should not be an extra item on the invoice, that you should not be charging extra for fluid responsive. I think that this can be part of the pitch. I think you can say, hey, I'm really great because I do this, and this really great accessible fluid responsive method, and charge as you're charging. But I don't think it should say, hey, this is the website, this is the fluid responsive method, this is something else. That's just my opinion on it. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But the reality is, this is very short to implement. We're finding that our team is spending 20 to 30 minutes taking a, let's say, 10-page website and turning it into what they want, fluid responsive. So it's not very time intensive.
Nice.
But charge it, tell people about it. It's a sales tool.
Yeah, I think in general,
Absolutely.
the way you sell this is to increase the value of the project size in general that you work with, right? Like the companies that care about this kind of stuff are probably looking for higher end developers. And so use it as a value add in your portfolio, in your sales process, in how you kind of like set yourself up, and it will help you go get those bigger clients or do more in that regard. Do you see any other questions here? I do see.
Yeah, I have.
Go ahead.
I'd love to first make a comment about the VH. We have Maria saying, I'm building a clonable that uses a lot of VH. Just a disclaimer, I'm not saying VH is bad or wrong. I'm just saying that it can open up a lot of issues. For example, small machines, small screens. You are assuming that somebody has this nice laptop screen. But what happens when they take their iPad Pro Max double X and put it this way, and it still gets this pixel value, but now it's different, and the viewport height is significantly different. So, not saying it's bad, but this is it. I think it should be used tastefully. It should be used with a lot of thought as why you're using VH.
Yeah, especially if you think mobile, when you turn that sideways, when you take your phone from here to here and you're at 50 VH, you go from a significant height to, and if your stuff inside of that is set as percentages or relative to that height, then it becomes either unusable or maybe then you start breaking those containers because things stick out of it or gets cut off based on how you do it or whatever. And so again, it's just a thing of taste and thinking.
I'd love to bring up a comment from Eric Mueller.
Yep.
And he says, I've seen that so many sites, even high profile ones, don't take wide monitors into account. I guess I noticed because I have a wide monitor. Yeah, Eric, a lot of us have wide monitors. We are in a wide monitor industry. And I think these need to be taken into account. You can do this as a complete add-on to your project. So maybe you don't want to do client first throughout your whole project, right? You don't want to do fluid responsive for your whole project. You just want extra large screens to get some love. So let's do, I don't know, a 1600 or even more, a 1920. And this goes to this one, 2560. And now the whole site is going to remain. This may not be exactly how you do it, but from 1920 to 2560, we are going to scale up that font size, maybe even more significantly here. So just with a few clicks of a button, you can take your project and make it really awesome for large sites. That's how flexible this is.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have wide screens because we are the creators of these things. And therefore, we require lots of screen real estate to kind of have different things here and there and wherever. The average consumer, like I think if you looked up the stats on what the average screen size is, you would see that it's probably, in that 13 to 14 inch size. I think that's probably why that happens like that. I think why most people spend those resources there. But we are in an era where, people are using bigger and bigger screens. And I think, again, it becomes more difficult to do that in a lot of platforms, right? If you're in WordPress, trying to scale and manage like larger breakpoints like that is a custom code kind of thing. Squarespace, Wix, who knows? Maybe you have to deal with the way the template's set up. Webflow is truly the first platform outside of custom building something that allows you to factor in for that variety of screen sizes with this level of nuance. And so again, it goes to the credibility of this platform, and what's happening here is that we're just opening up. Anybody who's watching this and thinks that there's, that this is like easy because it's no code is obviously not paying attention.
Yeah, these are the building blocks of the web. The building blocks of how your browser interprets sizes. That's amazing. I mean, when do you get that close to the browser in WordPress?
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Pete, I feel like there's such a gap between the clients I've had, small business with basic web design needs and small budgets, and what Webflow Client First can deliver, like this fluid responsive tool. Yeah, time to bump into another tier of clients. That's a great opportunity to jump into that next level and scale your pricing, scale your load, scale the refinement of the work you do. Any thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. That's, we're building this system and we're building these tools for people to grow their businesses. This is part of our mission, part of our goal. So, yeah, we want you to use these to get more clients, to do more work, to be smarter, to be more comfortable in your build. So, yeah, this is exactly for that.
Nice. Let's see. Pete has a follow up
We
there.
have
I guess I just need to work on building projects I like and not worry about clients for now. You could probably do both, but I will tell you that the people who really excel in this industry usually become obsessed with building crazy little things just to play and learn and explore. And they don't necessarily just build their portfolio for the client projects. This is something probably for our Tuesday shows. We talk a lot about this. If you go through the growth archive, we talk a little bit about this in some of those early episodes. But yeah, you want to build your portfolio of projects that attract the type of customer you want to be working with. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Pete, let me re-answer your question. I just read it over. For anybody, I cannot see the comments on the screen, so I just found your comment, and I think I didn't answer it correctly. So, Pete, you're saying that your clients are too small for what Client First delivers. Client First is ready for enterprise projects. It's ready to create large, massive scale projects, but you just need 2 landing pages or 5 landing pages. Client First can do that as well. I really see this as a system, fluid responsive, not fluid responsive, just Client First, as something that can be used anywhere. Look at our clonable. The clonable to start your project is tiny. So if you're building a tiny site, you'd want to start from a tiny starting point. And that's what Client First is. If you're building a big giant project, you want to start from a tiny point so that you can customize everything. So, Pete, there's different ways to name your site. There's different ways to organize your site where you can use Client First for a single landing page small business that doesn't need to edit the site or doesn't need to do anything. You can still use the system to work more efficiently and to just be better inside Webflow. That's how I feel about that.
Yeah. Okay, let's see.
We have some comments about the VH again.
Sure.
Maybe we do a learn and live, just sprinkling in some appropriate other measurements like this. Caleb has a good point here. I think VH is best used in min or max height values along with regular rem values. So yeah, if you're using VH, the min or max, whether that's min width, min height, this is a great way to do it because it's not an official declaration of this specifically, of viewport height. You can use your rem values, it can scale appropriately, and then it just stops at a certain point. Still could have potential issues, and if you are not experienced enough, you may not find these issues, but there could still be issues. So Caleb, great point here. This is how I would start playing with that mix of that.
Yeah. Richard was asking, hey guys, when is it best to add this to your project, as in the responsive engine? Right when setting it up, at the end? When should they focus on using this?
That's a great question, Richard. I have not set this up on a full project and a build because I don't build full projects anymore. Is there anybody in the Finsweet team in the crowd here that can answer that question? If not, I would say, Richard, do tests throughout your build. Once you have a page down, it takes less than 5 minutes to generate a CSS snippet and see how it's reacting. So I would say do short checks, and even if it's at the very end, you can make it work. You'll probably have to go and make some edits, but even at the very end, I think it can be a perfect implementation.
Nice. Tim was saying, and I think we answered this partly before, but do you guys use REMs for everything, or what units of measurements do you mainly use? Because I thought REMs were only used for text sizes.
No, Tim, we use REMs for everything. REMs can be for any sizes. They can be for text sizes. They could also be for, yeah, literally any other size. So REMs, just back to the beginning of the episode, the most general basic description of it, it is a relative unit. It's just relative to some other value. And when we don't set that as our HTML value, when we don't set an official HTML value, whether that's in pixels, whether that's in viewport width, if we keep it in REMs, every single REM value is going to have a reference of the browser font settings. So we're keeping that reference, every single reference in our site to the REM is going to be based in those browser font settings.
Nice.
Yeah, that's how that works. Okay.
Okay. I think that's most everything. Penny's just saying client first makes your process faster and easier. That makes your work for small clients that much more profitable for sure. Pete, following up there, just saying wants to use it for small projects, just trying to step things up like we were talking about. So for sure.
Nice.
REM is great. Life. Carrie, you have client first with Carbon Design System and a few others. Any plan for a Material UI client first combo?
You know, that was in the original specs for the very, very first bootcamp, and we didn't move forward with it because it's huge. It's just a massive library, and I felt that it needed several people to be completed for this bootcamp. So we didn't move forward with it. We do not have any plans to build any more wireframe or template kits like this. We are now starting to lean on the community for building components, for building templates, for building clonables, all this stuff. We are now seeing people showcasing things. If you go in the Client First Resources Center, we have a showcase. People are submitting to this daily. So we want, I think somebody else is going to build the Material UI kit. I think it's going to come. And we will verify it, we'll check it, and then we will release it as an official, verified, a premium type component or a clonable inside the Client First system. Yeah. So that's that, Carrie.
She's saying that's what I'm trying to work on. Maybe I can do that. So yeah, if you build stuff like that, or if you want to call dibs on that, we'd love to, empower you to do that, and for sure. Let's see. Max Norris is saying a bit off topic, and this will be the last question we answer here because we won't answer it. A bit off topic, but it would be possible that you could build into your plugin that you can open 2 pages from the same project. No. One of the things, and we've covered this in other things, in other streams, is that when we build stuff, we are only giving you additional access or usability to features that already exist inside of Webflow. So to do that, we would need to change how Webflow works, and that's not something we're playing with. And so, no, those kind of features, added functionality in that regard, are not things that we're looking to build inside of these tools. Only just making it easier for you to do some of the other things that Webflow already allows you to do, just putting that in a different UI. Joe, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's exactly correct there. And I'll tell you that would be a terrible, terrible feature to release. That is incredibly prone to issues. I can say, as we close this out, the things that we will release in the extension, probably over the next month, we have our official game plan complete for our next extension sprint. So the next update to the extension, you're going to see vertical canvas resizing. This is in your designer. We have a wonderful, beautiful horizontal breakpoint. So we can see this is working just well. We have a scale down here. We can adjust this canvas size. We can adjust these different settings here. We're going to build a vertical add-on to this where you can then vertically resize to see how the screen adapts. So instead of grabbing the entire browser, you'd be able to grab inside Designer, and we'll have settings for the popular devices, the iPhone 12, the whatever the heck, all these other ones. So that's coming. We're going to have a really nice addition to Client First. The Client First edition, we're going to launch it with this browser extension update. And this browser extension is going to give you some more visibility into your classes and how you're using Client First. We're going to generate a visual of your class system for you. So that's coming. And the last one is a bulk rename tool for classes. This one I've been waiting for a long time. You can select a keyword, any text inside of your class names, find that text and either replace it, add text in front of it, add text behind it, remove text in front of it, remove text behind it. If you are a Mac user, this is if you select multiple files and you go to rename them, we are going to rebuild that type of tool inside. All of this comes back to Client First. The last two specifically are very, very Client First focused. And yeah, that's what's coming next to the extension.
Nice. Okay, well, I think that will be that for today's episode. This was a lot. Thanks, everyone, for hanging with us. Feel free to like that video again and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That helps YouTube put these videos in front of other folks like you, and we appreciate that support. Any other final thoughts, Joe?
That's it for me. Keep coming every Thursday. We'll be doing these in-depth walkthroughs, explanations, come ask questions every Thursday, 12 Eastern. And yeah, we'll see you next week.
Yep. Tuesdays, we talk about the philosophy of building your business, and Thursdays, we get hands-on with how you do it. So we'll see you here every week. Take care. Okay, we're out.